Welcome back, Internet students. Professor Z here. We're going to be talking about the lesson on ceramic tile flooring today. This will be lesson 29. Well, I can't believe we're getting up there. This is getting good headway here. So hopefully you're getting all of your papers written up, and maybe you're actually doing this project on your own. The tools and supplies used for this lesson is going to be masonry hammer, grinder, cordless drill, mixer bit, buckets, sponges, growl trowel, masonry floor trowel, grout, floor cement, tiles, spacer grommets, which are little rubber spacers for the tile, a heater, and layout plan. So your job is to pause this video and draw out your layout for all of your floors. You want to make sure that you know if you are going to carpet them, if you're going to tile them with ceramic tile, if you're going to use linoleum, if you're going to use wood, whatever your dreams are illustrating to you, you're going to go ahead and write that out currently. So I'll wait and wait for you to come back. Okay, the student should understand by the end of this lesson how to design an entire floor plan for proper tile textures and layout. The assignment is to write up a paper on types of floors for your off-grid homestead, likes and needs and wants. Please include all floor levels and include basement into your drawings. Step 1, planning the milestone. So this milestone will start out with another lesson surfing the internet. You will check out internet sites to find suitable selected textures and floor patterns and colors and sizes and ceramics and anything else that you may need to have a floor that is best suited for each room of your home. For me, I actually purchased a few sample tiles from the home and garden store and brought them into the home as a test color against my logs. You can always take them back to the home and garden store when you've thoroughly investigated the patterns. Once you have your tile selected, you want to measure up the correct square footage of the room and then purchase the tile. You will also need to select the color of grout, usually darker than the new tile, to go in between the cracks of the tile. Go ahead and purchase buckets, cement, trowels, grout, mixing agents, and any other tools that you may ask a professional that you may need. Step 2, laying down the backer board. The first step before you lay tiles, students, is to lay down a fireproof backer board. Now, I think all backer boards are fireproof. It just comes that way. So you don't have to go look for a fireproof backer board. Just look for the backer board and it's going to be fireproof, from what I understand. I could be wrong, though. This will not only give your OSB subfloor extra strength, but it'll also give you the right compound so your cement will secure and harden thoroughly. So remember, your backer board is going to go over your OSB wooden subfloor, and it is the right compound that will affix your cement for your tile. So that way everything will be nice and snug when you actually get tiling the floor. The backer boards come in gray sheets, either 1/4 inch thick or 1/2 inch thick. You'd use a 1/2 inch thick for your dry walls when you have sheetrock, but doing floors you can do the 1/4 inch thick, which works just fine, and they are lighter to carry. Trust me, you want to use the 1/4 inch thick for your floors. The best thing about these 3 feet by 5 feet sheets is that they come with 1 inch squares engraved on them. They're kind of like a template, and you can of course lay those face up so that you got the template before you, but then you can use those squares to properly align tiles as you lay them out on the floor. There's 2 steps to affix the backer board to the subfloor. And keep these in mind. You want to start at one corner of the room, and everything should be square at this point, so you don't need to re-square off the room. everything is square. The way you put up your interior wall studs should be square to your room, so you don't have to worry about that. Once the 3 by 5 foot backer board is totally covered on the back with cement, because you have to cover it with cement before you stick it to the OSB subfloor, lay it down in the corner of the floor, and again, it should be square. Next is you look at the top of the OSB backer board, you're going to see little dimples. These are about every 8 inch in square. So every square 8 inches, you'll see a dimple on the front side of the backer board. Those depressions are used to nail to the OSB subfloor. You will use a roofing nail, the ones with the big fat heads, and nail it down after you have cemented it. Don't wait for the cement to dry, just nail as you go. Repeat this process with many backer boards, securing them to the floor with nails and cement until the entire floor space is covered. Step 3, mixing the cement for the tile. You should have purchased a few buckets from the home and garden store. Fill your 5-gallon bucket with the prescribed cement for tiling. There is different cement, so make sure you understand which one that you are purchasing. Fill about halfway up and then add water as needed to make the cement a little thicker than soup. You don't want the cement to be running off the back of your tiles, but you don't want it so thick that you've got clumps and it's not fully mixed. You don't want the cement to be runny, and you don't want it to be difficult to push down the tile onto the backer board. You should have also purchased an automatic mixer extender, which fits into your cordless drill. Go ahead and secure that into your drill now and mix up the cement in your bucket. When you're done mixing, all of the clumps and dry powder should be gone and mixed thoroughly within the water. Once the cement is thoroughly mixed, you're ready to use your cement trowel for spreading the cement on the back of the tile. The cement trowel is a corrugated square pattern, kind of like a sawtooth square, so that the cement will go onto the back side of the tile and in a squiggly line fashion, and then it will be the right height on the back of your tile, which will then allow you to depress it into your backer board. Essentially what you're doing is leaving grooves in the back of the tile so that when you do depress it into your backer board, it should smush out and then basically complete cementing the entire backside of the tile as you depress it down. Step 4, inserting tiles. This step will require some skill and some practice. Once you have the back of the tile lathered up with cement, as I suggested, it's going to be squiggly lines, and it's going to be some parts of the tile will be bare and the other part will be lapped up with cement. You will place the tile cement side down in one corner of the room. Be sure the tile is square, because the rest of the tiles in the room will be built upon the position of this single tile. Just lay it right onto the backer board. You can use the 1-inch square templates on the face of the backer board to help guide your placement. So what this is talking about, students, is you're going to have to square this one, because what I found is that you want to leave a little space, probably the width of the rubber grommets that you've purchased, to space out the tiles. And the reason why you have to space the tiles out is because you want grout to go in between those cracks to make it look real nice. And so it's going to have to be squared, the tile, because you want to make sure that you leave a space around all sides of the tile so that it's not snug up against the wall. So just be aware of that. So to continue, the next tile you will lay down the same way, away from the corner and right next to the tile that you just laid. It is best to go along lines across the room, so lay the tiles longwise. There's also the rubber grommets, which I've talked about, which are spacers. They come in different sizes. I used a 3/16 of an inch wide, and then go ahead and space every tile in the room according to the grommet width. They will be utilized 2 per side of the tile, so each tile will have a total of 4 rubber grommets. Because remember, when you lay down a tile, whether it's a corner tile or any other tile, 2 sides of the tile will now have to be spaced. And you'll see from the picture here. Once you complete the first row across the room, start in the second row and space the tiles correctly. However, and this is a big however, you want to use half of a piece to start your second row underneath your first row. That way your tiles will always be corrugated going across the room and actually add strength to the tiles and the structure of the floor. That's why in most rooms when you see rectangular tiles, they do not line up in straight lines across the room. However, if you have marble floors or square tiles, you might want to line up all corners of the tile in perfect squares, as I've seen that. Tip: in order to cut the tile, you should use a grinder with a masonry stone. I used a cordless grinder and it held the horsepower and completed the job just fine. Be sure to wear heavy-duty gloves, hard hat, safety goggles, as pieces of the tile will fly across the room. Once your pieces are cut, make sure they will fit properly, because you need to have the cut enough where the groove of the grout is going to be placed and it is taken into account. So in other words, students, if you get to an end of a row and you have to cut the tile, which you will, I don't think any house is exact. You got to make sure you cut not only what you need, but to leave spacing on both sides of the tile so that you can grout both sides of the tile. So take that into account. And once you get your first or second row going, I know this sounds complex, but it's not. You're going to get going fast, and the next thing you know, you get into a rhythm, put on some Christian music, and the next thing you know, you're going to town and finishing off your room. So it's not that big of a deal, but just keep that in mind. Step 5, grouting. Once you've completed the entire floor and let it dry for 24 hours, the next step is to fill in the cracks of the tile on the floor. This will be done after a 24-hour period, so let the floor dry thoroughly. You want to ensure that the cement is completely dried. Sticking the tile to the backer board, you will be walking over the tile to grout the floor, so the tiles must be securely affixed to the backer board before you start. Now, I used a heater overnight because I live up in the northern Rocky Mountains, so it gets pretty cold, and as you know, I had a fireplace, which you've seen burning in some of these pictures, and it's a beautiful fireplace, and keeps a log home nice and toasty and warm, and you can make a hot cup of tea and sip it at night and look out the window and see antelope and deer and moose and elk and all kinds of wild animals out the windows. But for some of these off rooms that weren't directly in the room with the fireplace, they don't get enough heat in order to dry as fast as I wanted it to. So I purchased a kerosene heater, students, and then essentially you fill it up with, I think, I don't know, it's about a gallon of kerosene, and that thing will burn for about 6 hours, and it kept the room nice and toasty. And just put it right on the tiles and let it heat overnight, and it did the trick. So you might want to do something like that if you live in colder regions. All right, so getting back to grouting, you will want to mix the grout in a 5-gallon separate bucket. You want to use a separate bucket than the cement, because grouting is going to be seen by everybody that walks into the room, where the cement is underneath your tile, which will never be seen, and you don't want the two to mix. So if you've got white flakes of the cement in one bucket and you mix brown colored grout in it, it's going to come out with white flakes in it, and you don't want that. So when you do mix grout, though, you don't need as much as you did with cement for the floor, because you're just going in the cracks of these tiles. So the reason for this is because the grout will fit securely in between the cracks, and you don't have to spread it out the entire width and depth of the tile. So you can use the same mixer extender of your cordless drill, which, by the way, is something you can buy from the home and garden store. It kind of looks like a rectangle with a line down the center, and then the other end, it's kind of like a large hex. Have you ever seen a hex wrench? It fits into your cordless drill very nicely, and it spins, and it makes life a lot easier when you're mixing. And you can really get this thing whipping and mixed up very nice and thoroughly without any clumps or you know, any powdered dry spots. So you want the grout to be a little bit thicker than your cement, so it's going to be more than just a hard soup here. The reason for this is because your grout needs to be more like paste than it does a pliable cement. Remember, you need to push down on the tile into place to allow it to be secured to the backer board when you're cementing tiles. However, it is much better to have the grout a little drier and then wetter when applying it in the cracks of the tile. And make sure you apply a generous amount of grout on all four sides of the tile with a grout trowel. It's a different trowel, by the way, than the actual trowel that you would have for your cement. Start in one corner of the room and use your grout trowel, which is a rubberized and not metallic, such as the cement trowel for your tiles. You'll smooth the grout out, and in all the cracks of the tile, I would grout in complete rows across the room, and you can do 2 rows at a time if you want. Remember, you're going to be on your knees, so I would buy knee pads and a good set. Don't buy the Velcro ones. I did that, and they just keep ripping, and things get in there, and it just doesn't stick. I buy the ones that strap on, and then you can, take them off as needed. They're much durable too, by the way. Now there's an added step. So once you grout all the cracks, you're going to see that you got grout all over the tiles as well. So how do you get that off and without it drying and looking terrible? So the added step is to take your sponge and pail of clean water and go over the grout. This must be done prior to your grout drying, because you don't want that to dry on your tiles. You want the grout to be removed enough that there's an indentation inside the groove of the tile, and the tiles look shiny and clean on top. Once this is done, you will let the grout dry for 24 hours. So, in other words, students, you want the grout to be a little lower than your tiles. That's how, when you look at a tile floor, the grout is not above the surface of the tiles. It's kind of a few millimeters lower. And you can do that with a sponge, a wetted sponge. So you're going to need another pail full of water, and then just take a regular household sponge. And they actually sell grout sponges too, by the way, where you're going to go over your whole floor and clean up every excess of grout. And then make sure that you use the sponge in the cracks of the tiles that allow it to be a few millimeters lower than the actual tile height, and then it looks really shiny and pops. Tip: it is best if you leave a crack between the wall and the rows of tiles in the room instead of placing the tile right up to the wall. I'm talking about the very first tile that you place. Again, you want to leave that crack around all sides of the tile for grouting. Now that the entire room is complete, the grout has dried 24 hours, you can wax the floor and make it look shiny. Tip: I used a grout sealant in the grout itself instead of mixing it with water. This allowed me not only to seal over the floor after it was done grouting by using my sponge and wiping it up, but save time and energy. So once the floor is dry, give it a final inspection. You will see that you did a great job. You will repeat this process for all the floors in your home. For me, I had 4 bedrooms, of course, which took 5 days. These are some timings I'm giving you. Staggering, the tiling and then the grouting and the prescribed dry times to dry. The bathroom took 1 whole day. The great room 3 days because it was so big. And again, you can see with the large square footage home that you may have, it may be maybe 1 to 2 or even 3 weeks to go ahead and tile your floors. You may also want to carpet some rooms, maybe use wood paneling or wood substitute or linoleum if you're that kind of a person. I don't really like linoleum. I would never use that stuff. But, well, that's it. You've completed your brand new tile floor. You're now a flooring person like a professional. And we'll see you in the next lesson and final lesson. And then just remember to click the thumbs up button down below, students, and then also subscribe to the channel right next to it. There's a button next to there. This allows us ratings, and with ratings, we can get a little bit of money kicked back to us. And then if you can donate a $5 tax-deductible donation at our website, www.university1310.org. And where all the resources are currently free, and we want to keep them free. So there you have it. Godspeed, and I hope that your project comes out to your liking. God bless.